Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's November 16th and I'm out here in the garden planting a few onions, and I figured we'd talk about a few things, so let's get into it. Yeah, I'm just out here starting to put some of these onions into the ground that I started already. These had been given a haircut. It hadn't even been a week ago, and you can see the difference from where they're cut. They're about 8 inches tall, a lot of them, and so they put on about 6 inches of growth in about a week. But I figured I'd get them in the ground. Now, I always plant mine small. I don't wait and try to grow big ones, but I'm thinking I might have considerably more than what I need. I'm going to put quite a few beds in, but I've just used 2 cells out of that 18 cell tray, and it's taken almost what I would say is about a half a row, about 20 feet. That's on one side, so 4 of them's going to get me 20 feet. And I've got this one and 7 more trays, so I'm going to have a lot of onions. But anyway, it's, like I say, it's the 16th of November here in northeast Texas in the Piney Woods area. And we're pushing, it could be any time now for a freeze. It looks like there's not one scheduled in the next 10 days of forecast, but that doesn't mean anything. But I figured I'd talk about getting prepared, because a lot of things you can do, or maybe make you a list of so you don't forget. One thing is your water faucets. Now, I usually, once it's going to show 32 or 30 degrees, I'll go ahead and take all this loose. But the thing is, now I don't worry so much about my drip lines. I will, after I take them loose, I will make sure any valves that are closed, which these are open, but any that are closed, I'll make sure they're open. That way water can drain whichever way, and plus it won't have a contained area that if it does freeze, that it's going to break the valve there. So that's the important thing. But you definitely want to take loose any fittings and take them in, and make sure that your freeze faucets are closed, because if they're closed and you leave a hose connected or anything like that, what it's going to do is it's going to keep water up in your system, and you're going to end up replacing a hydrant. So that's a very important thing to remember. So make your list and be prepared so you can take this stuff loose when that freeze is coming. Don't wait till it's right up on top of you and then try to remember everything. Now, there's other things that you can do if a freeze is coming. One of them, of course, my cucumbers, they're far and in between, so I won't worry about that. But you would, any vegetables that's of any size, now cucumbers don't keep long, but they do keep, so you could harvest them, especially tomatoes. Now, I always hear people with questions about this, and a lot of them say put them in a bag and set them up somewhere in a bag. Now, they'll ripen up maybe a little bit quicker in a bag because of the gas that these give off, and an apple would cause them to ripen quicker, but I wouldn't suggest it. But all these green tomatoes will eventually ripen. I don't care how green they are. If they've got any size at all, from the smallest to the biggest, if you're going to eat a tomato this size, go ahead and pick them. Now, last year when I picked all mine, and I did it more of an experiment, I didn't ask anybody. I said I want some good advice, so I did the experiment myself, and I picked 2 bushel baskets of green tomatoes. Now this year I might have a few more because I planted a lot of late plants and I have them here in the high tunnel. So, but I put them in a bushel basket, and then occasionally I went through. You don't really have a problem with rotten spoilage like you would if you was ripening up some that say were turning. You know, like this one here, where it's split, it's possibly could get bacteria and get infected or something like that. So you won't have that problem when you pick them green. They're a lot firmer. That's the way a lot of these production places do with their tomatoes. They pick them green, they ship them, and then they gas them at the warehouse, and then they send them out. Now that's why the flavor isn't as good, as because they rush that up. But you do want to be aware if you have some bad ones. Now I have this here, see, even though it's not showing anything right now, this you want to make sure that you did not put this with the rest of them, because it's definitely going to rot. So be aware of the condition of the ones that you are putting back. Now you can spread them out on a shelf. I put them in a bushel basket last year, and that's where they stayed until occasionally I'd go through and I'd pull out the ones that start to blush, and then I'd put them on the counter, let them ripen, you know. And they were actually very good. They were a lot better than store-bought tomatoes. This year I have some of the little black containers like these, and I'll put some in them and stack them, put some in them. I won't have to dig as deep to go through and find them as they start blushing. But realize that they're all good. Think about getting out there. It might take you some time, but if you have peppers, now the jalapenos, when they're really little, they're not going to be as hot. They will still have some heat and some, be good for seasoning. But if it's going to freeze, the plant's going to die. So now these particular ones in here, I'm going to try to cover with some ground cover and try to keep them going as long as I can. Just as this is one of those experiment things. But any of that produce that's in your garden, you definitely can harvest it and put it up. Now if you have a dehydrator, peppers dehydrate really good. I don't freeze peppers. There's some people that do, and I've heard comments that when you freeze them that they lose some of their heat. Now I don't know how that is. Now we do freeze dry some of our peppers, and they're still really good for seasoning. So as far as if you have a freeze dryer or dehydrator, you can process those up, and store them, and so you'll have them through the winter. Bell peppers the same way. Bell pepper really freeze dries good. It rehydrates good, and you can put it in the dehydrator. It's good that way, or you can vacuum pack and freeze it. Now we have done that in the past, which we're going more to freeze drying, because that way we don't have to tie up so much freezer space. But realize this: all your crops that you have in your garden that are not cold weather crops. Now, these carrots, stuff like that, I wouldn't worry at all. Your onions, your garlic, I wouldn't worry at all, because those particular things, they're made to go through the winter, unless you get really far up north, and then the temperature might get too cool. Lettuce is the same way. Now mine's in my little greenhouse right now. Eventually I imagine I'll have more inside the big greenhouse. But lettuce, there's a lot of varieties. They'll take it down to 15 degrees. So realize that. Your brassicas, they'll go into the mid 20s. you possibly could have a little bit of problem with little leaf damage, but as far as the plant will survive. Your broccoli, it'll take those cold temperatures too. Now, like I say, if it starts getting down there below about 28 or so, you're going to see some damage to the leaves. If you do have it forming heads, it would definitely affect the head on it. So what you would want to do is take and if you had some row cover, that would be the perfect thing. Now, last year I used a lot of row cover, and I probably will on my broccoli if I start having problems with you know, it getting really cold. Because here in East Texas, normally we don't get a lot of real cold temperatures. You know, and in the greenhouse or the high tunnel, whatever you want to call it, unless you have one that's heated, the temperature is going to be the same as outside. There is an advantage to having a greenhouse or a high tunnel, is that you can put row cover over it. It's a lot easier because you don't have to fasten it down and worry about the wind taking it off, because your sides will be fastened down. But realize that row cover will give you a lot of extra warmth from that ground. It'll hold it in there. You need to take it off in the daytime when it warms up so it's able to warm the ground again. But you need to realize that will help out in there, and it's easy to drape over when you don't have to worry about wind blowing it and taking it off. So, but I did that with my lettuce. Even though it wasn't cold enough temperatures to kill it, it was cold enough that it could damage some of the leaves, and it works really well to just keep it going. So consider that. There are other things you might do. Now, some of you up north, you've already had some of those really bad temperatures. Now, for down here, it stays warm enough. I could almost, if my strawberries kept blooming, I could almost grow strawberries all the way through the winter, you know, with just a little bit of ground cover. Which, and I'll probably cover some of these just to keep them to where they stay warmer, they'll stay greener, and that type of deal. But like I say, be prepared. If you're going to have to cover some with some row cover, then go ahead and get that ordered so you'll have it. Now, I have a video talks about making your own hoops, making your own landscape staples so that you can staple your row cover down. That will save you a little bit of money if you have the time, and it doesn't take that much effort. But the main thing is, if you're going to have that first frost or freeze, and it doesn't have to get to freezing, it just has to be a frost for a lot of plants. This poblano, it definitely, if it came to if a frost hit it, it's gone. It's gone. And we just this past Saturday, I know in my smaller greenhouse that was open, it said it was 35. And as we left the house to go to the farmer's market and started through the woods, the vehicle outside temperature said 32. So we just barely missed it then. The biggest thing about a frost, if you have a frost and you don't catch it, and it gets there, if you get out there early and wet those plants down, because what happens with the frost is that frost draws the moisture out of the leaves, and that's what kills the plant. But if it gets below 32, forget it. Wetting won't do any good. It's going to kill it. But anyway, I hope this video helps you, that you can use some of that information. If you want to see more of my videos, just hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you'll be notified, and give it a big thumbs up. Happy gardening.